Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Estate Market Analysis for San Jose for November of 2023. This is where we take a little time out to review what's happened in November, see where we are in terms of listings and sales and average sales prices, compare that to the past, and take a look at the past to see if we can't figure out what we might be able to expect in the coming months for the city of San Jose. My name's Robert Whitelaw. I'm a licensed real estate broker right here in Silicon Valley. Feel free to reach out to me at soldbyrobert.com. If you've got any questions about buying, selling, or investing in real estate here in Silicon Valley. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into it and take a look at total number of active listings. This is going to give us an idea of the total inventory. So for buyers, that means how many homes did you have to choose from in the month of November? For you sellers, it means what was the competition like? How many other homes were out there trying to get the attention of buyers who are interested in making a purchase? Now, let's go ahead and start with just comparing this year to last year. November, we had, of 2023, we had 505 homes totally active on the market, and we had a 29% decrease in the same time last year. Last year, the total number of active listings was 709, so a pretty dramatic drop from the same time last year. And right now, we have a total months of inventory of 1.3 months, which is extremely low, which indicates a seller's market. And to get an idea of what months of inventory is, if you were to freeze the total inventory we have right now, and divide it by the total number of homes that sold in the month of November, that gives you an idea of the months of inventory that we currently have on the market, which generates a 1.3 months. 4.5 to 5.5 is considered average. If we look back, we can see it's been really kind of steadily ramping up until October of 2023, and then we got a little bit of a dip in November. Very normal for the winter months to see a dip. You can see that we saw a dip at the same time last year between October and November. It was a much more dramatic drop, but also remember, the end of 2022, we were seeing extremely high interest rates, so that's why we were seeing a dramatic accumulation of inventory. And then, of course, we had interest rates go down a bit at the beginning of 2023, which is reflected in the numbers we're seeing here. But we would normally expect November and December, and sometimes January, to be months with lower overall inventory, just because folks are not interested in trying to sell their homes in the winter when there's Christmas and Thanksgiving and guests and that type of thing. So keep that in mind. In terms of what we can expect in the coming months, I would expect this to stay flat or go a little bit lower, and then at the beginning of the year, take a jump as we see more folks deciding to come onto the market in that first quarter of 2024, which I think is a pretty safe estimate to make here. The real question is simply going to be how many folks come out to add their home to the marketplace. And something that's interesting that I've seen locally is I've had a lot more people reaching out to me about potentially selling their homes. I think this is probably the highest number of folks I have who are seriously talking about listing their home, and folks who have actually signed agreements to list their home in that first quarter of 2024. It's been a big jump from the past couple of years. So if my personal experience is any indicator, we're likely going to see a pretty good uptick in total number of active listings. Next, for San Jose, we're going to check out the total new listings. These are sellers, homeowners who decided to become sellers in the month of November. We can see that it is actually up from last year by 17%. Last year, we had 362 homes go on the market in November. This year, in 2023, we had 423. And we saw that we had our peak sort of March, April, May is kind of when we reached our peak, which is all very, very normal. When folks are going to sell their home, they tend to want to do it in those first few months before we hit the peak of the market, which tends to be June, which is all very normal, right? There's nothing bizarre about that. And we tend to see new listings dropping as we did in 2022. In October, November, December, we see them dropping and bottoming out in December and then jumping in January and February as we start preparing for folks who want to get into that season for 2023 when things are likely to have the highest probability of selling for the best possible price. Expectations here in terms of where we're going to go from here, I would expect to see a continuing decline in new listings in December and then see an uptick in January and February. I don't see any reason to expect a deviation from what normally happens season to season. In fact, I would guess we'd actually see more in 2024 than we saw in 2023. That would be my guess at this point. Total number of homes sold, and I like to take a minute to pause here because there's a couple of different ways to look at this. One is obviously how many homes have sold. It's up 4% from the same time last year. San Jose is a large area. So these numbers are good to rely on in terms of determining what trends are. We had 387 last year, 402 this year, with a trend of seeing the normal peak in July with a decline into winter months. But here's what I like to do. I like to take a look at this and compare it to the number of listings. Did we sell more homes than were listed? And as we just looked at, we listed 822 homes in San Jose in November, but we sold 778. So we did not sell all the homes that were listed. So the net result is we increased overall active inventory by 44 homes in 21 homes in San Jose. And in the county, it was 44. In the city, it was 21 for a 4% increase from last year. Again, I think I already mentioned that. But 21 homes added to the market in San Jose. So we're seeing a net accumulation of inventory. When things get very interesting is when we start to see a net reduction in inventory, meaning we sell more homes than we list. But that's not where we are in November. That's also very normal for a November. We'll see how things go. I haven't seen a drop in buyer interest. I have seen an increase in seller interest in terms of folks looking to list. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when those two realities meet in the first quarter of 2024. If we look back previous to 2022, between October and November, we saw a drop. We saw that here, but a much more dramatic drop in 2022. November and December, homes sold kind of a wash, right in the same ballpark, with it bottoming out in January and then seeing a ramp up from there. My guess would be we're going to see the same trend in 2024. Pending sales. Now, this is an opportunity to sort of get a peek into the future. Pending sales simply means that the owner of the home who had it on the market has accepted an offer that hasn't closed yet. So we like to keep a look at this to see where are things going to go. And we can see we've got two ways of looking at this. First of all, it's actually up from the same time last year. We had 397 homes accept offers in November of 2023 and 349 in 2022. And the trend has been sort of as it normally happens. You know, the winter time is when things start to decline. So we tend to see our peaks in May, June, July, August, right in that ballpark. Very much what we saw last year. But I wanted to also plot it on a chart where you can see sold versus pending. And when those two lines move away from each other are oftentimes interesting moments in time to see what is likely to change in the next month. So sold homes and pending homes are very much on par with each other. So my expectation is to see flat sold numbers. Remember, we talked about my expectation that we'd see the sold numbers be flat in December. Given that the solds for this month are almost the same as the pendings, my guess is we will see a continuing flatness in the total number of homes sold. And this just gives us insight into that to be more confident in our projection that that's how things are going to work out in December for San Jose. Average original list price. Now, this is an interesting one because this is an opportunity to get a feeling for the mindset of sellers. Where were sellers' minds at? Because this is what homes originally list for when they get posted into the MLS. It's not after any price reductions or increases. This is what sellers were thinking, this is what my house is worth. And that was up 4.9% from the same time last year. Now, in November of 2022, this number was at 1,349,000. This year, it's 1,415,000. And then we can see it's been relatively flat, but it's actually been on the decline since about July and just very mildly on the decline. And then we saw a little bit of a jump again in November. It'll be interesting to see where we go from here. But my guess is we'll continue to see a little bit of a flatness or decline in the next month or two, and then an uptick as we head into the hotter market period for 2024. But no dramatic changes here in terms of where we're seeing these numbers go. Next, average sales numbers. So now we're looking at what did they sell for? And in terms of what the market is experiencing in San Jose, it's a 6.3% increase from the same time last year. So in November of 2022, the average sales price was $1,284,000. In November of 2023, it's $1,365,000, which is actually down. This is a lower amount, and again, expected for the wintertime. So, and when we look at how expectations versus reality end up showing up, we can see that San Jose has about $50,000 discounted from expectations, meaning that whatever expectations were in San Jose for the month of November, the amount they were actually getting on average was about $50,000 less than that. So that's not horrible. That's a pretty good correlation between expectations and what was actually coming out at the other end in terms of what homes were selling for. But now let's go ahead and jump in and see what, on average, folks are getting for their homes. Interestingly enough, they're still getting over asking price on offer, which tends to imply that they are getting multiple offers, right? They're getting about 2.9% over asking price. On this particular chart, if it's at 100%, that means you're getting exactly what your asking price is on average. Now, last year at this time, folks were getting 99.2% of asking price, meaning they were getting about 0.8% below asking price. But this year, it's up to 102.9. So that's a 3.7% jump from the same time last year. And we can see that we peaked in July, which is, again, not unusual. We tend to see that peak in the peak months of the year in terms of the hottest times of the year for the market, simply because there's more competition. That means more eyeballs, more interest, which ends up resulting in folks making offers above asking price. In terms of just trends, where we expect things to go, obviously these numbers were much lower last year because of the high interest rates. But in general, we saw the decline leading up to December, and then they started to pick up again in January. It wouldn't now, given the place where we are now, I don't see us going below 100% before we hit the hotter market of 2024. My guess is that we stay right around 100% or more, 101 to 102. And then once we hit February, I think we start to see things ramping up from there. So I think we're going to see a pretty hot market again. I'm seeing more interest on the seller side in terms of coming onto the marketplace, but I'm not seeing enough of an interest that it's going to offset buyer demand. Buyer demand is still up there, and I think what we'll kind of just scratch the surface in terms of satisfying buyer demand for homes in Silicon Valley. Next, days on market. How long have homes been staying on the market? Obviously, we've seen a dramatic decrease in this number. And again, compare it to last year when interest rates were super high. It was super tough to find buyers in a lot of these markets simply because interest rates were so high. We had 31 days on the market in November of 2022, 20 days in November of 2023. That's a 35% drop. And if we look at just the trends, take a look at what happened from August to October. Just flat. It took 17 days each month up until November. Interestingly enough, not the same. It was kind of on par with one another. But once we saw November hit, a little bit of an uptick. And then usually in January and February, we do see an uptick in the days on market. Not because it necessarily took longer, but because as we see increased interest on the part of buyers, we see homes that had stayed on the market longer selling, because we tend to sell not only everything we've listed, but then dip into the active inventory of homes that have been on the market longer. So that's that weird thing that tends to happen in January and February. And you tend to see that in all of our local markets. Next, price reductions. This is one I still like to track. This gives us some insight into how many homes per month on average are being dropped in asking price. Now, San Jose, we had 22% of homes currently on the market reduce their price in November. Last month's was 27%. So it's fewer homes are reducing their price. Now, the 27% from last month is pretty typical as we enter into the winter months, as folks who tried to get their homes sold during the peak realize they've sort of missed the boat, so they tend to drop their price a little bit more. Overall, from the same time last year, we've got 40% fewer homes that are doing price reductions. And again, that is very understandable given the fact that we had high interest rates last year that were really making it difficult for buyers to engage, and also making it difficult for sellers to get their asking price, so they were forced to reduce those numbers. Okay, I think that just about covers it for San Jose for November of 2023. Again, my name's Robert Whitelaw, licensed real estate broker in California, serving the Silicon Valley since 1988, if you can believe that. Anybody interested in buying, selling, investing in real estate here in the Bay Area, I'm happy to help you out in any way I can. Feel free to reach out at soldbyrobert.com. The goal here is always to leave you with more knowledge on the table than I take up in your time, and absolutely hope we've achieved that this time around. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to y'all next time.